Billy, you so crazy.
Yo, what's cracking? What's bracking? It's your boy, Billy, you so crazy, and we back, and we back, and we back, and we back with another one. Y'all read the title, sure know what we doing, man. This is 25 things you missed in Contagion. Now, have y'all seen Contagion? If you haven't, you need to go watch it because, man, it has some very, very creepy parallels to what's going on today. That's all I'm gonna say about that, because if I go into any more details, YouTube be done pulled this video. They already try to blackball my channel anyways, so let me not give them any more further reason to do so. But if you are new to this channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button, comment down below what you want to see your boy react to next. Follow me on all my social media links are right there. Send me a message on any one of those and I get back with you as soon as possible. Let's find out what these 25 things you missed in Contagion are.
Contagion are starting to feel more real than ever. The film follows teams like the CDC and the World Health Organization as they fight to track down the source of a virus and find a vaccine as the world descends into a pandemic. While there are a lot of things the movie got right, there are also a lot of things it completely over-exaggerated, but there's no doubt that a lot of research went into creating this film based on what would happen during a real-life global health crisis.
Spoiler
Here are
alert.
25 of the most interesting
So they're gonna
details in
spoil
the
the
film
movie
that
for you
you
if you
might have
haven't seen
missed.
it.
And stop touching your face, Dave.
Contact tracing is a very real way the World Health Organization traces a virus's roots. Finding patient zero is the best way to figure out where the disease came from and how many places it's spread to. But it's not always possible to find patient zero. Agents really do watch security footage, travel the world to interview people, and put themselves in danger by pursuing the disease. And even though they may have found patient zero, by the end of the movie, they're not sure how Gwyneth Paltrow first came into contact with the disease. But we get to find out that it was due to a chef not washing his hands after handling an infected pig. For most pandemics, an educated guess might be the best we have to work with. Healthcare workers really are put on the front lines of disease, but it doesn't mean that they're any more immune than the rest of us. Early on in the film, Kate Winslet lets us all know that people touch their faces thousands of times in one day. And
do it all the
before
time.
Kate's character gets sick,
Don't even
she tells
realize
her
it.
partner to stop touching his face so much, but later that same day, she speaks on her cell phone without putting it on speaker. Basically, she's holding the germs right to her face for a prolonged amount of contact. It's not implied that's how she got the disease, but it definitely proves that it's not so easy to follow what professionals say.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Kate Winslet
I always
isn't the
have
only one
headphones.
having trouble following through. This nun is working with some of the sickest patients, but she's only wearing gloves and a mask. This is a pretty big downgrade from the hazmat suits most of the medical staff is wearing. Experts say that taking precautions by wearing a mask and gloves isn't nearly enough, and it really doesn't keep you from getting sick. It's people that are sick who should be wearing the masks. This means that the pop-up clinic doesn't have enough protective equipment to keep their staff safe. You've definitely noticed how the camera always zooms in on people touching different surfaces, spreading around those fomites that Kate Winslet warns everyone about. They're on ATM machines, bus seats, and surfaces, and casino chips, just to name a few.
Wash your
but
hands,
the very
people.
first
Wash
major
your
contaminants
hands.
we see in the movie isn't actually a surface. It's this bowl of communal peanuts. That's enough to scare us all away from sharing food for the rest of our lives. Later, we see what happens in a bar. The bartender touching his face and then cleaning the glasses, which shows us how important it is to stay away from public food and drink sources during pandemics. The introduction of every city includes an on-screen head count, and that's really important. Tokyo's is 36.6 million, and Minneapolis is 3 million. This is to show the amount of potential carriers and victims as the virus travels. It also highlights the numbers game involved with pandemics. When we learn that the virus has taken out over 26 million people, they're more than numbers, because at that point, we've gotten to know people who got sick. And compared to the head counts from earlier in the film, the number is bigger than entire state populations and almost as big as one of the most major cities in the world. Social distancing is not an overreaction in this case. It's a necessity. You might have noticed that the beginning of the film is the most socializing we see, and that's because once the virus starts to spread, socializing becomes one of life's most dangerous activities. Gwyneth Paltrow and the people that she infects spread the disease by flying internationally, going to casinos, using public transport, you name it. This results in schools and work closing, and that's exactly what needs to happen, especially so that the people who need to go out, like healthcare workers, are in less danger.
Yeah.
Jude Law's character is the epitome of fake news. His conspiracy website makes people go crazy for the holistic remedy Forsythia. In real life, pandemics tend to increase sales of other holistic remedies like elderberry, proving that people like Jude Law really do exist. But here's one of the ways the movie shows us that conspiracies are not the way to go. No one who showed symptoms in the movie recovered, except for Jude Law. So was he really sick with the virus at all? Probably not. And if he was just about as lucky as Matt Damon's character, who had immunity, which is definitely more luck-based than a statistic probability with a virus this serious.
True.
You might not have noticed that Matt Damon was really the only character for whom immunity was confirmed. Immunity isn't something that happens with every virus. You can become pretty much immune to the flu, but other viruses can be contracted more than once. Basically, immunity is unpredictable, which is why the doctor tells Matt Damon that his daughter might not be immune just because she's his daughter. Mass immunity does help fight off the spread of diseases because of herd immunity, meaning that the more vulnerable population who aren't immune and can't get vaccines are protected by all the people that can. Kate Winslet's partner thinks that everything is a bit of an overreaction, well, until she gets sick. He says that his wife makes him take off his clothes in the garage, wash them with a bucket of warm water and soap, and then sanitize absolutely everything. It might seem like a bit much, but it's a perfect foreshadowing to the end of the film, where everyone who is immune or has the vaccine has to scan their bracelets to be allowed to go anywhere. It makes sense that Matt Damon's character is one of the first to start moving around in the world thanks to his immunity, but you might have missed that his mandatory ID bracelet is orange, a different color from the blue vaccine bracelets others have. When he walks into buildings, we see just how desolate the world is and how long it's going to be until people start getting back on their feet and going back to their jobs and social lives.
Wow.
Giving vaccines out in order of randomized birth dates is actually the most fair way to treat an entire population in a year. In most pandemic situations, the ones who are most vulnerable are treated first. In this case, everyone is pretty vulnerable. It takes about a year to properly hand out a new vaccine, so doing it by birth date may seem extreme, but it assures a slow stream of herd immunity and doesn't discriminate. It might seem like some people will be in danger of illness for an entire year, but really, the virus will be spreading a lot less every day as people become vaccinated. This will take a huge load off of the world's healthcare systems. The color-coded system also shows how hyper-organized the government has to be during a crisis. The movie focuses on the first world, which is much more prepared for viruses, but it doesn't ignore the fact that third world countries are the most at risk. You might have missed the movie highlighting third world infection rates when Kate Winslet makes sure everyone knows that an African continent with HIV/AIDS has lost hundreds of thousands of people in a very short period of time. This also means the virus can mutate as it comes into contact with other illnesses. And since the virus made its way to these countries in the first place, it means that someone who was infected has traveled there, suggesting that being shut off from the first world doesn't make the chances of getting sick any less with a pandemic this serious. Could a pandemic be a biological weapon? The movie definitely thinks it can be, but also it makes sure to rule out this possibility after some careful consideration. It looks like Jude Law isn't completely insane and paranoid. One Homeland Security agent floats the idea that the virus was manufactured, but while it's definitely something that has to be ruled out, it's not the most likely option, and it's not something the CDC and the World Health Organization focus on when they're busy tracking down the source of infection. There are much more realistic options that need to be explored first, and Gwyneth Paltrow wouldn't exactly be the #1 choice for the release of a weapon. A movie's gotta be dramatic, but you might have missed that, realistically, MEV1 was spreading way too fast for it to have actually infected that many people. A virus needs living hosts to spread from person to person. The people who get taken out by the virus expire very quickly, which means that they have less of a chance of giving the virus to others since they spend a lot of less time out in the world. Of course, a movie's gotta be sped up a little, but in a way, the rate at which the virus progressed would have hindered its ability to become a highly infectious pandemic. In addition to spreading too fast, the age of those infected in the movie was also way too varied. Everyone from young children to old people were becoming sick with the disease. But generally, a virus targets more vulnerable members of a society first, which usually means that the median age to experience severe infection would be a lot higher than the young and middle-aged people we see get the sickest in the movie. But since they also made the disease spread so fast, despite the amount of serious infections, we guess it makes sense in the context.
Scene right there, boy.
This was all caused because the wrong pig met the wrong bat, but you might not have noticed how important climate change and preserving the earth is to how a pandemic spreads. When the bat is infected from his tree thanks to deforestation and then ends up dropping a little present in the pig pen, it's to prove that messing with an animal's natural habitat can have devastating effects. A bat could find its way to a human population without the deforestation, but it certainly doesn't help. It's also definitely not an advertisement for how cleanly or safe our livestock practices are.
True. Boy.
So why was it bats? Bats are actually the perfect carriers for disease, so the movie definitely got that right. Their immune systems are better than ours, and they generally sleep in tight quarters all pressed together. This means they can spread diseases without actually being severely affected by them. And since bats like to find tight, dark places to sleep, they really do infiltrate barns and houses, but they often go unnoticed. They are the perfect secret starters of a pandemic, and since bats have been known to carry other human diseases, it's not a reach that they could end up causing a pandemic as big as MEV1. Here's something about animal to human contact that the movie got wrong. The spread of the virus is zoonotic, meaning it went from animals to people. The end of the movie suggests that all it took was this one bat, one pig, and the one chef who touched Gwyneth Paltrow. But in reality, repeated animal to human contact would have likely been necessary for the disease to pass from animals to humans. So the one case causes the end of the world thing is a bit far-fetched. A virus that eventually affects humans was probably around humans well before any of them started showing symptoms. This is another example of how the movie speeds things up for dramatic effect.
I mean, it's still got a lot of things right, though.
If you were caught up in the aftermath of the movie's virus, you might have missed how much the movie was telling us to try and prevent pandemics. There's protecting the earth, sure, but there's also just the general awareness that we need to make sure we aren't constantly spreading germs. The close-ups on all the surfaces we touch throughout a day and how we don't take enough precautions with food or wash our hands often enough isn't to be dramatic. It's to make sure we know that paying attention to these things could help stop the spread of a lot of diseases.
Yes,
even everyday ones like that flu that most of us aren't scared of anymore. It's not about being paranoid, it's about being educated on the impact of our actions. The worldwide quarantine that takes place in the movie for about a year just wouldn't be feasible in real life, especially completely blocking interstate borders like the military does in Chicago as Matt Damon tries to leave. On the flip side, international travel bans would make sense even in a small pandemic, but human rights and economic shutdowns are always major issues the government has to consider when deciding how much of society needs to go into lockdown.
I heard that there's some
Did you notice that this was...
I heard that there is some places where military is at, where they shutting some streets down. I'm not 100% sure. I don't live in that area currently. But if you do, let me know in the comment section.
One of the few movies with no villain? Is it safe to say that the virus itself was the villain? In addition to people causing the environmental destruction that leads to the bat traveling around with the disease, human panic is what leads to the most problems. The trash in the streets, businesses and cars being broken into, panic buying supplies. These all lead to some of the most pressing issues that cause people like Matt Damon and his daughter to stay stuck inside even when they could technically be enjoying the outdoors more, albeit from a safe distance from others. Because of these reactions, the government waiting to tell people about the severity of the disease makes total sense. What's one of the first things to go when people start panic buying? Purell, of course. As we now know, this isn't any different from reality, but realistically, washing our hands often is just as effective as sanitizer, and we should be staying home anyway.
A magical place with magical charms indoors.
Meaning that hand washing is super accessible. In addition to hand sanitizer, the people in the movie go for things that might be needed if the entire world shuts down, like flashlights and batteries galore, even if these types of products are rarely what's needed in a quarantine and are more useful for a natural disaster.
Right.
Teamwork is key. Did you notice how no agent or healthcare worker was completely alone while they tracked down or tried to cure the virus? The movie makes sure to depict groups working together to fight off the pandemic all over the world. And while people may be isolating themselves in their homes, everyone doing it at the same time is key to preventing the spread of the virus. The World Health Organization, the CDC, and each and every government and citizen have to work together even when apart, and their belief that a solution can be found is what keeps society functioning. Since so much of the movie seems accurate, it's easy to miss the fact that Contagion screenwriter Scott Z. Burns is not an expert on viruses. He actually spent years interviewing health and disease experts and doing research before he wrote the script. Yet tons of people have been asking him for advice after watching the movie. The movie should teach us that taking advice from someone who is not professional is never a good idea. Plus, the film was dramatic simply because that makes it more suitable for entertainment, not because the drama was realistic.
Yet.
At the end of the movie, the vaccine for MEV1 gets stored away with the vaccines for SARS and H1N1, which were the two biggest modern pandemics at the time of the movie's release in 2011. This suggests that there are going to be more to come, which we know is true based on the most recent global health crisis. But it also ends the movie on a positive note. We will persevere and get better at preventing these types of outbreaks, and we have people working hard behind the scenes to make sure science and the world are prepared for the ever-changing health climate. Well, there you have it. It's hard to believe that a health professional would forget how important it is to keep your cell phone away from your face during a global pandemic, but it proves that it's not so easy to stop the spread of diseases. Are there any other
there's a video, I think it's by Mark Robles, I think that's how you say his name, and he did a video like how germs spread. It's pretty informative. Maybe I'll do a reaction to it, but you guys should definitely go check that out on your own if you haven't seen it. But it's just crazy how it took this for people to realize, like, yo, you got to be a lot more cleaner than you are. But I mean, hey, it is what it is. Hopefully at the end of all this, you know what I'm saying, things will never be the same again. They won't, but hopefully it'll be better, at least, because things definitely needed to change. Unfortunately, if this is what it had to be, then, you know, I guess I don't know. I got theories. I've read things. I know some things, and hopefully it doesn't go the direction that I think it's gonna go. I don't know, but y'all let me know y'all theories or what y'all think is happening in the comment section. Let's talk. You know what I'm saying? Let's talk. But if you enjoyed this reaction, give this video a thumbs up. Comment down below which one to see me react to next. Follow me on all my social media links are right there. Send me a message on any one of those, and I get back with you as soon as possible. I appreciate your guys' love and support. It is your boy BillyYouSoCrazy, and I see you on the next video, man. I'm out this start.